monopoly is the opposite of the perfectly competitive market. In the perfectly competitive market, there was a huge competition. But remember, that is the competition between unknown. Right? Firm X does not know what is firm Y. Firm Y doesn't know firm Z. This is like what we experience in the Sunday fair in our city, Badul, or in your city. Right? There are a large number of suppliers, large number of buyers. Everyone doesn't know about the other person. And we have no personal relationships. We have free entry and exit. We have free and quick information flow. So that is the situation with the Sunday fair. But if you take like Sri Lankan Railway, what about that? If you take railway transportation in Sri Lanka, we are having only Sri Lankan Railway or Sri Lanka Railway or SLR. Right? So how many producers are there? So how many suppliers are there in the Sri Lankan railway transportation? It is only one. We have only SLR or Sri Lanka Railway as the sole producer of railway transportation. There will be a lot of customers. Commuters will be the customers, so there will be a lot of commuters. So they behave like in the perfectly competitive market. But supplier, we are having only one. This scenario is called a monopoly. In fact, it is the opposite of the perfectly competitive. In the perfectly competitive, we had a large number of suppliers. In this case, we are having only one. And remember, monopoly market structure also a hypothetical one. It is not a real. Right? We don't see pure monopoly market structure. I will explain that later once I finish the monopoly structure, why we are not seeing the monopoly in the practical world. But before that, let's see what is the monopoly market structure. So now it is very easy because already we learned about the perfectly competitive market. Since we learn about the perfectly competitive market, easily we can get into the monopoly. So in the monopoly, as I mentioned, there will be only one seller. Right? So in the market, there will be only one seller. There will be a lot of buyers. Since we are having only one seller, with that assumption, we can say that the total market, the total share or the total market is taken by the seller. If he wants to increase price, he can reduce the quantity. If he reduces the quantity, price automatically goes up because there is no any other supply. If we want to decrease the price, he will be increasing the quantity. Thereby, he can change the price. So only one seller means the total market share is taken by one seller. Right? So he will become a price maker. In this case, in the monopoly, producer will be the price maker, whereas in the perfectly competitive, producer was a price taker. But consumers are price takers because there are a large number of consumers. You just take the railway example. Sri Lankan Railway, even though we are having only Sri Lankan Railway as the supplier, there are a lot of people. So a lot of consumers are there. Therefore, consumers accept the price determined by the producers. If producers say this is the price, consumers will accept that. The second characteristics of the monopoly is there are no close substitutes. As we discussed in the previous case, we had homogeneous products. Since we were having homogeneous products, they were substitutes. And they were at least close substitutes, like my example, carrot. I can buy carrot from person X or person Y. Still I am getting the same carrots. So therefore, we have homogeneous products. So substitutes are there. But when we do not have homogeneous products, then there are no substitutes. So when we are not having substitutes, of course, we have to depend on this market structure. So there will be entry and exit barriers. In the perfectly competitive market, we assume that there are no entry and exit barriers. Anyone can join the industry or anyone can leave the industry. But under monopoly, we assume that there are entry and exit barriers. So there are entry and exit barriers. It may be due to several reasons. It may be like having the ownership of a vital resource, like OPEC. I hope you have some idea about the OPEC. That is Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. It's a cartel. They are working together. Oil producing countries working together. That is their society. Now this OPEC is endowed, or OPEC is having the vital resource for crude oil. The petrol, diesel, and all these fossil fuel, because they have the crude oil endowment. So crude oil is endowed by these people. Therefore, they are having the monopoly. So OPEC is having like a bigger amount of the market share, maybe like 60-70% of the total market share. So they can change the price as they want. If OPEC thinks that price should be increased, it will increase the price as it wants, because they are having a very high market share. This is because of the ownership of this resource. That is true in many places when we are having ownership of a vital resource. The other one is the government legal barriers. In some cases, government put legal barriers to become a monopoly. For example, in I think 1995 or 6, I don't remember the exact year. That time we had only one gas company in Sri Lanka, which is under Ceylon Petroleum. So LPG is produced and sold by Ceylon Petroleum. Then the government, Sri Lankan government, sold the LPG business of the CPC to Shell Gas, one company from Netherlands. So when we sign the contract, maybe it's bribery and the corruption, so whatever, we signed an agreement. When Shell come to Sri Lanka, we will let them be monopoly for 5 years. Monopoly rights for 5 years, which means no any other company get into Sri Lanka during that 5 years period. So Shell was the only supplier. And this is because of the government regulation. With the government agreement, Shell had the monopoly right. So Shell was the only supplier in the market. It can change the price as it wants. And so this is because of government legal barriers. And finally, it can happen because of the economies of scale, returns to scale. And we learned this previously. For example, if you take Sri Lankan Railway, why we are not getting any other company running the railway in Sri Lanka? Is it because that industry is not profitable? I will take a very simple example which is common for you and me both. Now, if I want to get candy, what I do, I will take a bus. The reason for that, I really love traveling by railway. But the problem, if I take the railway, it may take more than 8 hours from Badulla to Kandy. Whereas if I get the bus, I can go by 3.5 hours or 3 hours. Right? So, doesn't it say that if you have a railway road or railway track between Badulla and Kandy via this the shortened route, you can have a railway track which will take you within 1 hour from Badulla to Kandy. If I laid down that road, it will take only less than 1 hour to go from Badulla to Kandy. So it's a nice opportunity in the business world. This is a very good opportunity. We know there are a lot of commuters, right? So a lot of students, those are coming from Kandy, Kurunagala, Anuradhapura, and all these areas. They will get to Kandy and quickly use that railway from Kandy to Badulla. So there's a huge market opportunity. If I'm a rational entrepreneur, I should start the business, putting a railway track from Kandy to Badulla. But it's not happening. Why it is not happening? It is because of the economies of scale. Putting a railway track is not that much easy. You need all regulatory clearances. So we need to get the clearance, then we need to get the land, we need to put the track, we need to buy the locomotives, we need to get all HR, human resources needed for that operation, and operating like signals and all other infrastructure. So all these cost a huge amount of money. Therefore, an individual entrepreneur in this country will never get into that business. It is very expensive. Only the government can do that. So this is why government is having the monopoly in the Sri Lankan railway. This is because of the economies of scale. We need a huge money or huge investment if we want to build the railway track between Kandy and Badulla. Simply, these reasons tells why we are having entry and exit barriers. It may be government regulations or some resources or maybe economic of scale. Anyway, because of these reasons, we don't have free entry and exit. We are having barriers to entry and exit. Remember these characteristics. So it is very important to remember to distinguish between perfectly competitive from monopoly. Now, when we are going to get the optimum output level, the cost functions we will be taking the same as given. So the cost structure that we had with the perfectly competitive market, we will be using the same in the monopoly analysis. So let's assume for the moment, input market is in the perfectly competitive condition. This is why we have the same cost curves in the monopoly, right? So input market works under perfect competition. Output market is in the monopoly, where we are having only one producer. So therefore, cost structure will be the same for both. But the revenue will be different. Right? In the previous case, it is just P into Q because P is determined by the market. It is market given price. If price is equal to 10, no issue. We multiply with the amount that thereby we get the revenue. But in monopoly, P into Q is wrong because, of course, it is P into Q. But with the Q, P also change. It is not fixed like 10 rupees. Depending on the amount of that we are going to produce, output price will be determined. Therefore, it's a function. It's a function of P and Q. Right? And importantly, in the perfectly competitive market, we had two scenarios or two demand curves. That is, firm's demand curve was separated from the industry demand curve. And so horizontal adding of all firms' demand curves will be the market demand curve. in the perfectly competitive market. But in monopoly, we will be getting the same. Market demand will be equal to the firm's demand. So remember, market demand is equal to the firm's demand. We can show it like this. This is the demand for a firm. This is the demand for a firm in perfectly competitive market. So price is given as P1. You can supply any amount of your good with P1 because you are selling small amount in the market. It doesn't matter. Others will not care about your production. Right? Therefore, we can sell any amount in the market given price P1 in the perfectly competitive market, which is given as DC. But in monopoly, we have the market demand curve. Market demand equal to the firm's demand because industry and firm are the same. So there are no any other firms supplying the same good in the market. Therefore, market demand will be equal to the firm's demand. So we put DM and DC. So that is the difference between firms' demand in both cases. Then, when we take the total revenue, we got P into Q, which had something like this, continuously increasing because your P is fixed. So you multiply fixed P with variable Q. So it is simply P into Q. So when you go upward in the Q, your output will be, your revenue will be increasing continuously. But under monopoly, it is not that because you have P here, P into Q, P into Q, P into Q, and P into Q. With the price, your total revenue will be changed. Therefore, in the beginning, with the increase in Q, total revenue will be increased. Like up here, up to here, with the price, you will be increasing the quantity, your revenue will be increasing. And then, after getting into the maximum, it will be start decreasing. Like here, after this point, when you increase Q, your output will be, revenue will be decreased. This is just remember with the graph, but the technical reason for that is when we are having elastic demand, then when you increase your quantity, your total revenue will be increased. Right? So when you are having inelastic price elasticity of demand, which we discuss under market structure, increasing quantity will decrease the total revenue. So therefore, the total behavior of the total revenue curve will be something like that. This. It will be increasing and then decreasing. Because of this reason, we have different behavior in the MR. In the perfectly competitive market, MR was fixed. If this is, let's say, this is the price. If this is the price, it was the MR in the competition. But under a monopoly, we get the marginal revenue curve, which cuts by half. If you get here, the two distance will be the same. So we are getting something like this straight line under DM, which is having the slope twice higher than the demand curve. The slope of this curve is twice higher than the demand curve. So we have the market demand curve. Then we are having market MR curve, which is also the firm's MR curve. Then when we want to get the equilibrium, we use the same concept that we learned previously, MR equal to MC. Because if you take any point to left to this Q, we will be having higher cost compared to the revenue. Right? If you are taking any point here, your revenue will be less and cost will be high. So therefore, you decrease your output from here, you increase your output from here. So at the end of the day, we will be settling at the point where MR equal to MC. So at this point, MR equal to MC. So how a monopoly market decides its output? It will first find the point where MR equal to MC. Right? That is the first thing monopoly producer does. It will be looking at the point where MR equal to MC. So MR equal to MC at this point. This is the point where MR equal to MC. And then it will look at what is my output. My output is Q. Right? So output is determined such that at the point where MR equal to MC. Since this is the only firm running in the market, what it does, once it determines the level of output, it will be moving up and check the willingness to pay. So this curve is willingness to pay. Demand curve tells us what is the willingness to pay of the consumer. Why they are willing to pay that price? Because they are happiness. So therefore, when the monopoly firm decides to, it will be moving upward and checking what is the price willing to pay. So that willing to pay price is taken as the market price. Because monopoly producer, it is only him producing this good. We have no any other options. We have no substitutes. Therefore, what monopoly producer does, it will check what is my output level. When it gets the output level, it will be moving upward in the demand curve and find the willingness to pay. And then set that willingness to pay as the market price. So then, what about the profit of the monopoly? Because we learned in the perfectly competitive market structure, firm can earn economic profit, economic loss, or normal profit in the short run. In the long run, they will never earn any economic profit. They have to satisfy with the normal profit. But in monopoly market structure, what will happen? The monopoly producer will look at the point where MR equal to MC. So MR equal to MC at this place, it get down and check the quantity, then get up and check what is the willingness to pay at that quantity. That willingness to pay is set as the price. Let's say this is the short run. Now, if this is the case, what happened? What is this? This is the average cost. This is the total cost of the firm. Right? But what is this? This is the economic profit. So this tells us monopoly firm can earn economic profit in the short run, like what we saw with the perfectly competitive market, no issues. Right? In the perfectly competitive market, we check that there are economic profit in the short run. The same way, under monopoly, there can be economic profit, or even there can be economic loss. But what happens in the long run? In the short run, no issue. Perfectly competitive also can earn economic profit in the short run. But when other firms get to know, they will come and join in the industry. When they come and join in the industry, supply will be increasing rightward. When supply increasing rightward, that will shift the price down. So economic profit will be vanished. In the long run, we will be getting into the minimum of AC. But what happened in the perfect monopoly market structure? In the monopoly market structure, there are entry and exit barriers. Therefore, even though this firm earn economic profit in the short run, In the short run, these firms earn economic profit, but no one can join the industry. No one can join the industry. So, even in the long run, monopoly firms can earn economic profit. Because there are entry and exit barriers. Since there are entry barriers, they will be earning economic profit for all the time. On the other hand, let's assume there are economic loss, not a profit. There are economic loss in the short run. Can the firm get away from the market? You take the case with Sri Lanka Railway. Sri Lanka Railway is earning a huge loss. And Sri Lanka Railway is earning a huge loss, but can they get away from the market? Of course, they cannot, because there are certain regulations. So government will not allow Sri Lankan Railway to get away from the market. Otherwise, if it was like a perfectly competitive market, if you are earning loss for 10, 15 years, we get away from the market. We leave the industry. But in this case, it is a monopoly. Since it is a monopoly, Sri Lankan Railway cannot just get away from the market. Right? So therefore, remember, under monopoly market structure, we earn economic profit and economic loss even in the long run. The comparison between monopoly and the perfectly competitive market. This graph also a little bit complicated, but don't worry. So let's start with this one. So we are having this kind of a scenario where total revenue is equal to the AR, right, D curve. So this is the AR curve. And the demand curve equal to AR. And then MR is twice steeper to D. Then we are having MC, AC, and AV. So we put that here. It is the same, other than this MRC. The rest is the same. Therefore, you can forget about MRC. Just take this is the D for the monopoly curve. This is MR for the monopoly curve. This is MC for the monopoly curve. This is AC for the monopoly curve. Then, if it is monopoly, we know how to get the optimum output level. That is at the point where MR equal to MC. At this point, we are getting MR equal to MC. So this is MC, MR. So we get the equilibrium here. So we are getting QM amount as the output. And then when we decide the QM, we go up and decide the PM as the price. So price in the monopoly market will be PM. Quantity of the monopoly market will be QM. Right. Then we know if it is the perfectly competitive market, we get to the price with the minimum of AC. Let's say this is in the long run. So we get into the minimum of AC. So MR equal to MC here, because we learn price in the perfectly competitive market in the long run. Price of the perfectly competitive market in the long run will be at the minimum of AC. So therefore, let's assume we decided the minimum of AC as the P. So this is the price in the competition. So price in the competition here, price of the monopoly here. So quantity of the monopoly is here, and quantity of the perfectly competitive will be QC. But remember, that is not QC because it is the output of the firm, not the industry. And if price is PC, this firm will supply QCF amount. But market supply is not only his output. Of course, in monopoly, QM will be the firm's output. That is the industry output as well as firm output. Because in monopoly, we are having industry and firm are the same. But in this case, industry and firm are not the same. So this QCF is the firm's equilibrium. Then we will do horizontal adding, and finally we get, if price is PC, this much of good is demanded by the consumers. That is QC. So QC is the supply in the perfectly competitive market. Because it is this amount is demanded, then they will supply that at the minimum of A, C. So basically what happens, 0 to C, QCF amount is supplied by one firm, and QCF to QC is supplied by all the other firms. Right? But anyway, the output in the perfectly competitive will be QC. Right? So quantity in the competition at point B, and price will be PC. So this graph clearly tells us, if it is monopoly, market price is higher than the price in the competition. This is the price of the competition. This is the price of the monopoly. And this is the quantity of the competition. This is the quantity of the monopoly. So that tells monopoly price is high and quantity is less. Perfectly competitive price is less and quantity is high. I hope you remember once I took this example, like 20, 25 years ago, in early 1990. If you wanted to get a mobile phone, of course you cannot imagine about a mobile phone. Let's say you want to get a landline. If you want to get the landline, the only company supplying landline was Sri Lanka Telecom. So there is a way of queuing, like what we are experiencing with petroleum today. So we have a queue. We go there and put our name and wait for like 2 years. So after 2 years only we will be getting the connection, because the quantity is so small. Under monopoly, quantity is small. When we say we are having only Sri Lanka Telecom, it is a monopoly. There were no any other firms running the business. So we had the monopoly market structure there. So we have less amount of good. Right? And what about the price? Price was so high. If I remember, maybe it is like to get a landline, you need to pay somewhere around 17,000 in 1994. It is like 170,000 today, or maybe 200,000 today. It is very much expensive. You need to be in the queue, whereas it is expensive. Then we open up the Sri Lanka Telecom, or the telecommunication industry in Sri Lanka for competition. We invited other companies. Like first we got the Celtel, then Mobitel, then Dialog, Airtel, Hutch, and so on. And there were a lot of companies joining in the industry. With that, what happened? We experienced the competition. When we allow the market competition, price got down. Now peak price PM, which was 70,000 per one landline. 70,000 means 170,000. It should be more than that. Let's assume 170,000 for a landline, which decreased to very low, maybe only 100 rupee. If you just pay 100 rupee, you can get the SIM card very easily. Even you can get free of charge. So the competition is that much huge. And the availability of the goods quantity, it is available now everywhere. So we have no shortages of mobile connections or landline connection. In fact, they will call you and they will be giving you free of charge all the connection. If you travel by the university road, they will stop and give you a SIM card free of charge without taking any money, because now supply is so much improved. So this is the example for perfect competitive or the competitive between competition and the monopoly. Under monopoly, we are having less supply, high price, and perfectly competitive, we have low price with high quantity. This is because in the perfectly competitive market determines the price at the minimum of AVC. Sorry, at the minimum of AC, average cost, which is the minimum price we can sell that good in the market if it operates. But in monopoly producer will determine the quantity. After determining the quantity, it will determine the price. So price is high, quantity is less. Now, if you consider the present day scenario of this country, what should we do? Should we allow market to determine the price or not? What do you think? Or maybe just forget about the present scenario, maybe it's too advanced for you. But if you compare monopoly and competition, what should we do? Should we allow to monopoly to run the business, or should we allow the competition? This is the simple conclusion that we make under microeconomics. So under neoclassical microeconomics, neoclassical economics mean the mainstream economic today. According to neoclassical economic arguments, we need to allow market to work freely. If we allow market to work freely, market will determine the minimum price, no distortions. Of course, in some cases, prices may be high, but people bear the cost. The best example is Sri Lanka Telecom. Sri Lanka Telecom was the monopoly supplier. So we had a very high price with shortage of goods and services. Then we open up it for the competition. What happens? Now we are having lower prices with high amount. If you take any other company, let's say CPC, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, they are earning huge loss. Why should we not allow them to leave the market? We should allow them to leave the market. So another firm which can earn profit will come and join and sell the good. So we may be earning some profits later, which will be transferred to the general public. Take Sri Lankan Airline, Sri Lanka Water Board. All these are natural monopolies, monopoly rights given by the government. So all of them are earning losses, but they cannot leave the market because there's a government regulation. So government is taking about the welfare of the public. So therefore, government is asking these firms to continue on the business. So what we did today, we just started the discussion on the monopoly and the perfectly competitive markets. As I told you, these two markets are very hypothetical. We don't see exact examples for both of them, because one example given by one of student is the paddy production. Is it perfectly competitive? Paddy production. Paddy production is not perfectly competitive because we have grain production. Some people, those who buy paddy, if paddy prices goes up and down, they will move into maybe wheat flour. We have a substitute, closer substitute. Right? So then we violate that assumption. But it is more closer to perfectly competitive. Right? So therefore we say it is running under perfectly competitive market. So easy to understand. If you take carrot market, it is also the same thing. Right? We are having some substitutes. We can buy some vegetable instead of carrot. We may not get the the same utility, but we will be getting as much as we can closer to the utility that we get from carrot. So therefore, carrot market also not perfectly competitive. On the other hand, can everyone join in the carrot market even though we say there are no entry and exit barriers? Practically no. Even though by paying a rent, you will not be able to go there because there are some thugs and some underworld kind of operations will be there. So they will ask you not to go there, or you may need to give some other benefit to these groups if you want to get there. So it is not perfectly competitive. Take the monopoly. I said Sri Lanka Railway is the sole provider in railway transportation. Of course, if we take it only railway transportation, yes. But there's a very good substitute, very close substitute. That is the bus or road transportation. Instead of railway transportation, people, if the railway transportation prices are significantly high, people will move away from the railway transportation and join with the road transportation by bus. Right? Therefore, Sri Lanka Railway is not having perfect substitute. Sri Lankan airline also the same. Right? Because we have some other airlines. Ceylon Electricity Board also the same. If the prices are so high, you go for solar power generation at your home, your own home. Right? That will decrease the demand for them. Because with all these, what I wanted to say, in real world, we don't see perfectly competitive or monopoly. Instead of that, what we do, we have closer relationships. Maybe my carrot example more towards the perfectly competitive. My railway example, it is more towards the monopoly. But in real world, we have in between. We have something called monopolistic competitive market, where market is running like perfectly competitive, but one producer will be dominated. Like if you take smartphone companies, on average, we can buy a smartphone with let's say 50,000, a reasonable one, before price escalations. So we can buy one smartphone for 50,000. But what is the average price of Apple iPhone? At that time, it was more than 150,000. How Apple can earn that much of price, that much of profit? It is running under perfectly competitive market because anyone can join the industry, anyone can leave the industry, large suppliers, number of suppliers, a large number of sellers. But Apple dominates in the market. Maybe the quality, maybe the marketing or branding, somehow they dominate in the market. Gents may know the Benton shoes. Average price of Benton shoes is double the normal price of local shoes. How Bettons can earn economic profit? It is because of branding or innovation or whatever. So it is a real kind of a market scenario. We call it as monopolistic competitive. And there can be two firms dominating in the market or supplying in the market. You take petrol, we are having IOC and we have CPC, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Indian Oil Corporation. Right? So two players are dominating in the market. Those two players are supplying the market. So the total share is divided between these two. Then we call duopoly. Or there can be two or more than that. You take the telecommunication industry, Mobitel is there, Dialog is there, SLT is there, and then Hachi is there, Airtel is there. So we are having oligopoly. Few firms dominates in the market. So likewise, we have Sony, monopoly, sorry, we are having monopolistic competitive, duopoly, oligopoly, monopsony, likewise. So these market structures are real world market structures which are difficult to analyze. Right? So if you are interested in doing economics in higher order, you can do that. In fact, the management students, they take all these market structures where we will be deciding the price in real world. And for that, we need a lot of time for the discussion. With that, I would like to finish for today. And with that, we end the discussion on something called microeconomics. The things we discussed up to now are belong to something called microeconomics. So under which we took one economic agent. It may be a producer, it may be a consumer. So we took only one economic agent and we made only one change. If price increase, we had no any other argument. We just say we increase the price, quantity decrease. That's all. After that, we don't worry what is happening. So we say one hit and one effect. So we give only one hit, that will have only one effect. So if he or she dies, that's all. We don't worry. Right? This is called microeconomics. Next week onward, maybe maximum 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we will be discussing about the macroeconomics, which is taking the whole economy in the broader sense. It is not one hit, one effect. You will give one hit to someone, he will hit you. So then you have the repercussions. And then you get angry and you will hit someone else. Likewise, it will be having many effects. So real world economic scenario, like if you want to explain the economic behavior of this country, we need to learn macroeconomic, which we will be studying from the next week.